guy in the NBA should ever wear 23.
I've been working on that shot my whole life, and for that one to go in, that was liberating right there, man.
And I'm not shoving it aside, like it don't mean anything. I know it's important. I honestly do. But we talking about
23 Shots of JD podcast.
Hey guys, welcome. Technically not back to the 23 Shots of JD. Actually, the first episode of the new sort of, I guess you could say, mini series in the podcast called 30 and 10. And if you didn't listen to the last episode, basically 30 and 10 is where I basically break down all 30 NBA teams 10 days before the season. Just a pretty simple name. I don't know why I called it 30 and 10. I think it's just. It seems like a general phrase that all NBA analysts use or players, or it just seems to be like the most universal stat between points and then commented by like rebounds or assists or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like they always get like, oh, I got 30 points, 10 rebounds, 30 points, 10 assists. I feel like 30 and 10 is always just a solid number. So, obviously thought it would be a suitable name for this mini series. Just for people that are listening as well, who sort of expected an episode, I guess a couple of days ago, the usual time slot I do post, a weekly episode. I did try and want to take a break because I was really focusing down on this series and wanted to be the best it could. And that's apologies if you didn't hear the last podcast because I sort of mentioned it there before, but. Yeah, definitely looking, especially for the next 10 days when this episode releases. This will pretty much take the whole time slot for the 23 Shots of JD podcast show. Because obviously, it's going to be every day and stuff like that. So it's going to be a lot of content for you guys to catch up on and stuff like that. But I guess if you want a bit more depth of what 30 and 10 is, it's sort of not only breaking down every team, but it's sort of reviewing last year as well. So we're going to have a bit of a brief review of every team's 2017 and 18 campaign, sort of if they met expectations, sort of how the season developed and stuff like that, and whether, that sort of panned out throughout, what, fans and stuff expected. And then on top of that, we're going to talk about the sort of appropriate changes they made, the switches and the sort of I guess changes they did in the summertime, obviously, and in the off season. And when you look at a lot of teams, and especially when I was doing my research for a lot of the squads, you see that a lot of teams are really changing their rosters, changing their front office, changing their coaches, and really trying to move toward a different direction, which I think feels like. Obviously I'm the young guy, so I can't really judge on past years and stuff like that, but I feel it still is, to some degree, unprecedented. So definitely a very, very interesting thing to look at. And then obviously we're going to, preview this season, so the 18-19 campaign, and see, what direction teams are going. And again, there's some teams that are going to be, going forward, some teams are going to be going backwards, and surprisingly, you're going to see a lot of teams, especially when I break it down further, that are going to be stagnant just because maybe they didn't do any off-season moves, or, just maybe the division itself got tougher. It's just a lot of factors and variables that surround that. But I should add as well, I'm not going to be the only one on this series. I couldn't imagine you guys listening to me break down all 30 NBA teams, and I feel like that would even be good content anyway, because it's going to be that singular perspective. So, I got some guests on the podcast, you could say. I got some journalists, some blog writers, just some great fans, just people honestly that love the sport of basketball. And I feel like I handpicked a bunch of people that are appropriate for the show, because this show's about true basketball fans. People can go into the analytics and stuff like that, but I believe that the 23 Shots of JD podcast was built upon the true hardcore NBA fans, the day in day out, people that love watching the game and just truly appreciate what the game means in the grand scheme of in people's lives and how it sort of affects them and stuff like that. But I got a bunch of great people going to come on. Some of them are gonna, be sort of unbiased. Some of them are gonna be biased, but it's gonna be definitely a great series coming along. And hopefully going to be a bit more science to go with the podcast. I feel like definitely I'm going to keep doing the weekly podcast, or the sort of episodic podcasts that you've known to love throughout, but nearly over years, nearly been a year since the 23 Shots of JD show started. So that's probably not going to look to stop anytime soon. But definitely, as I've mentioned, progressively throughout many of the episodes, especially the ones that I've been doing solo, that there is going to be some big moves happening in the podcast. Well, I believe to be big moves and some big changes for the better. I think just some different type of content, some more content, and just try and create this variety of people that share both basketball and other interests as well. Because especially taking the podcast all by myself now, I feel like I want to try and express myself and my own individual hobbies and interests into the podcast, and try and share that amongst all the fans, both existing and that's going to be coming on. But that's you'll probably hear some announcement that maybe there'll be maybe an update episode or something like that, so you guys could catch up on it. But enough of that. I'm gonna go straight down breaking the teams, and what a way to start. I can't even take this seriously. What a way to start the episode, because basically, I picked the 3 best teams that you could obviously, analyze. First off, some riveting playoff contending teams, such that include the Chicago Bulls, the Orlando Magic, and the Dallas Mavericks. So there's a reason why I picked these 3 teams, and you would probably see a sort of common theme throughout these teams when I probably break them down. But they all sort of share similar builds, similar prosperities, and I think each are differing in what stage you're on that development. Some are really in the infant stage. Some of them are so they're going out of the infant stage and becoming sort of more of a solidified team and core, and then there's another team that's sort of more ahead of that. So I would jump straight into the Chicago Bulls. Chicago Bulls last year, an interesting team to say the least. Before the draft, a lot of people had the Bulls sort of, one of those teams that maybe they could run back the team they had with Rondo, Wade, and Butler, and try and fight for another playoff position. But that being said, you never really thought that the Bulls could, with that team, progress anywhere. So coming to the draft, they made a bold move. They did one of the biggest moves, you could say, during the draft. Not many superstars or quote-unquote superstars to start potential players are traded in the draft. And as you saw in the 2017 NBA draft, Jimmy Butler got traded. Jimmy Butler got traded from the Bulls to the Timberwolves in exchange for Chris Dunn, Zach LaVine, and the number 7 pick that ended up being Lauri Markkanen. So on face value alone, people, giving their first-time opinion on the whole matter, pretty, you'd think that the Timberwolves probably did the best job. Timberwolves got the superstar, and I feel like if you're going to look at any trade, most people that get the superstar are going to win. That's sort of just the historical nature of trade. So on face value, you think they won, but as we'll get through sort of their last season progression, that perhaps maybe they did, maybe not got the better end, but definitely didn't get shafted as many teams, many analysts and stuff thought. So yeah, they traded and got Zach LaVine, who was on an ACL injury, so he didn't really play much of the first half of the season. He was definitely rehabbing, but definitely a great shooting guard to get with. So he was a sort of player looking for an extension on his contract. So that whole season was really pivotal for not only Zach LaVine trying to prove that he is worth the money that he was looking for, but on top of that, Chicago Bulls evaluating whether he's going to be sort of in the long-term picture. On top of that, they got Chris Dunn, who was former lottery pick, arguably the best point guard in this draft at the time, and he seemed to be, just sort of put into the mist. Like, no one really even noticed him at the Timberwolves. He was sort of the forgotten player because, you had Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins and even Zach LaVine did to a degree, the three core players, but everyone forgot about Chris Dunn. He played behind Rubio, so maybe that's why he didn't get much minutes, but, a guy that a lot of people said was a really solid, ready to go point guard as well, because he was a sort of older player in college, so definitely got him. And then the big one was Lauri Markkanen, and a lot of people sort of were, they were sort of indifferent about the pick. Lauri Markkanen in college at Arizona was sort of like he was sort of a small forward in a power forward / center's body. He could shoot the three. He was a lethal shooter. He could score, outside and inside, but yet he didn't really average that many rebounds. I think he averaged like 5 rebounds, 6 rebounds, which for a big man, even though in college, you should be getting closer to, 8 or 9 rebounds. So I think there was a lot of scares on his sort of ruggedness and his toughness within the paint, and whether his sort of, mentality to fight for balls and stuff like that will be able to arise within the NBA. And then just on top of that as well, it's sort of his defensive potential. I feel like a lot of NBA GMs sort of looked at him, weary, and didn't really know what it was going to be. He sort of looked like he could be exploited in defense. And when it comes to the playoffs, if you can't play defense, you're really going to be a liability on the court. So I think definitely, he was sort of a pick that, some Bulls fans love, others hated, and majority was just sort of indifferent. Like, yeah, he's good. He's not great, but, he'll be all right. He'll be all right. But, yeah, fast forward into the season, and, a lot of things happen with the Bulls, a lot of things. And I think, unlike a lot of teams that we're going to break down here, they actually tried to be, relatively competitive. They still had Nikola Mirotic in the first half of the season, Bobby Portis, Dwayne Wade was there. Like they had a lot of great players that were still, trying to compete and try and be their best, for the team and stuff like that. You had people that are trying to prove themselves, like Chris Dunn and the like. Denzel Valentine was trying to play really well. So they had a really good squad, and I think, hopping back on Lauri Markkanen, he was really the shining light of the whole team. Everyone sort of realized that their initial projections of him were not completely wrong, but I think sort of misguided with his play in college, because he absolutely just, showed out. Maybe not showed out, but definitely turned people's heads when he came into the NBA in his first half of the season. Shooting threes, grabbing rebounds as well. He was, pretty athletic. People didn't realize the mobility he has. So he was really sort of, great in regards to just trying to prove people wrong. And I think at that point, people realized that, this guy, the natural centerpiece of the team, he could be Dirk Nowitzki-like. He could, there's so much potential with this kid that, you definitely have to sort of view him as one of the the critical core nodes within your team. So, the rise of Markkanen was sort of the big storyline that sort of, went progressively throughout the year. And another one as well, Chris Dunn, sort of the Chris Dunn redemption story, as you could say. If anyone's been listening since the beginning, sort of I personally didn't have a great, rap on Chris Dunn. I thought he was okay, but not great. And for a top 5 pick, I feel like the value that he was giving at the time at the Timberwolves, and even earlier points in the season for the Chicago Bulls, wasn't really worthy of being noted as a top 5 pick, But, he sort of progressed on and became sort of more and more legit, you could say. Maybe legit. Probably not the most appropriate word to use, but he definitely started to show why people, viewed him as a top 5 pick and one of the better point guards coming out of his draft class, because he was sort of an all-round player. He could score points. He's not the greatest scorer, but he can get in the lane. He's athletic. He grabs rebounds. He knows how to, play make. Pick and roll action with Lauri Markkanen was deadly at some points in the season. So he definitely proved that perhaps maybe he's not arrived, but he's sort of proving that he does belong in the NBA, which, some people even had fears of coming, into this season if he was still on the Minnesota Timberwolves. So it's just great to see that Chris Dunn was able to sort of prove that, he's more than what people thought of, So that's great to hear. And like I said, they try to be competitive, but I think they did have one eye on the draft because, the draft was sort of one of those loaded ones, which, I don't know how you can predict that because I swear every single draft, maybe not the 2013 draft because everyone knows, the Anthony Bennett draft was one of the most dud drafts, but like 2014, 15, 16, 17 have just been, everyone says it's like the next, 2003 NBA draft class, which obviously it's still relatively, still extremely early days. I mean, so, we can't judge that at all, but I haven't seen really any LeBron James except for maybe Ben Simmons. Not really having any any Carmelos, CP3s, Chris Bosh's. So there's still time to tell. Dwayne Wade's even. So there's still time to tell. But at the moment, 2003 draft class was just sort of an anomaly that can't really be touched at the moment. But heading into the summer, the Chicago Bulls had a lot of decisions to make, and I think the biggest one they had was with Zach LaVine, and obviously they had his bird right, so they were able to match whatever offer he was getting, and I think Zach LaVine himself was trying to maximize his potential, also maximize his contract potential, to other teams, and Chicago Bulls, I think, irrespective of what anyone was going to offer, even if they offered him the max, which obviously sounds like an audacious thing to say with a guy that was coming off an ACL injury, but there was definitely murmurs about him getting a massive contract. So Zach LaVine sort of tested the market, and Chicago Bulls let him test the market, see what sort of value he got, and he actually got a 4-year, $78 million contract with the Sacramento Kings. They put that offer out there, and I think it was definitely something that the Bulls had to bite on. Just under $20 million a year. I don't know the sort of intricacies of the contract. I don't know if it's front loaded or back ended, but I think getting Zach LaVine on a 4-year, $78 million deal is, in my opinion, is still. I think Zach LaVine's a really, really good player, and at the shooting guard as well. The shooting guard position is sort of at a scarcity type situation at the moment. I think what Zach LaVine can bring, obviously we know his athleticism with one of the most insane dunk contests we've ever seen, or I've ever seen in my lifetime, and then on top of that, he actually has a decent 3-ball. He's got a decent fadeaway, and I think he's got a little bit of playmaking about him. I don't think you can trust him with the ball in his hands all the time, and I think that's why you have someone like Chris Dunn to really be sort of the glue to sort of combine everything on the team. But I think Zach LaVine, as one of your, again, core critical players on the team, is definitely something to not laugh at. I think he's a really solid player that needs to actually be considered in high regard. And if he can rebound, great in his first sort of full season, if he can get there off an ACL, I think Zach LaVine's going to really turn some heads and really going to prove that he's not only worth a contract, but obviously exceed the contract value as well. But talking about another guy coming off a torn ACL as well, the Bulls, they picked up local hero, Simeon native Jabari Parker for 2 years and $40 million, which again is sort of one of those tough ones because Jabari Parker's, he's not a bad player. He can easily average 20 points per game, and I think just because of his 2 ACL injuries within the NBA itself, it's just sort of puts a sour taste on a lot of GMs and a lot of just NBA fans' face, because this guy had heaps of potential. There was an argument that he was going to be the number 1 pick over Andrew Wiggins, and he got picked over Embiid. He's a stud player. He's a stud player, stretch power forward. But I think just with the ACL injuries, and then that culminated with sort of the rise of Giannis, I think sort of pushed Jabari Parker down the pecking order in Milwaukee, and people, you're obviously going to choose Giannis over Jabari. That's not even a conversation to have. But I think Jabari Parker's value and sort of utility, his utilization within the team is gonna, be sort of more projected in the Chicago Bulls. And I think being home, obviously Milwaukee's not that far from Chicago anyway, but being home in Chicago, sort of having that type of feel is going to be, I think a lot better for him. And I think 2 years, $40 million contract, that's a win-win for both teams. I think for Chicago Bulls, then, if he pans out to be how people project him at the beginning, and he sort of wipes away all fears with his knee injuries, I think he could really be a big piece into maybe sort of playing a nice stretch lineup where you have like Lauri Markkanen at the 5, and then you can play like Jabari at the 4, and then you have Denzel Valentine at the 3, Levine at 2, Chris Dunn at 1. There's so many options that they can really have with the team if Jabari Park is hitting on all cylinders, which I really hope for, man, because this guy's the former number 1 player. Like, this guy was a stud prospect, and it's sad to see that someone's potential might not be achieved just due to these silly knee injuries. So sucks to see that, but and again, a really good signing for the Bulls, and I think adding to that young core as well is nothing negative about that at all. So definitely a good pickup, irrespective if he's able to play the full season or not, much like Zach LaVine. And like I said, the Bulls try to stay competitive, but they did have one on the draft, and they were able to pick up a great play in Wendell Carter Jr., which, if you actually look at the GM's sort of the GM poll, they actually have Wendell Carter as one of the sort of the top 4 Rookie of the Year players. So big vats by GMs on Wendell Carter Jr. I didn't really watch much of Wendell Carter Jr. at Duke. Much of the spotlight was on Marvin Bagley, but Wendell Carter Jr. sort of it's one of those players that people feel like an all-round player. I know his player comp is Al Horford, which Al Horford's a really good player. Statistically, not a great play. I think Al Horford probably averages like 15 and 7 or 15 and 8 or whatever. Like, it's not mind-blowing numbers to say the least, but I think his impact on the floor is something that you can't really measure. And I think that's something that Wendell Carter can bring in. The most important thing as well, people say, is sort of his attitude towards the game, sort of a culture changer to say. So definitely Wendell Carter Jr. is definitely someone who's going to be, impacting the team in a positive way. And I think, with the tutelage of, Mike Krzyzewski and sort of I think he's a very intelligent guy as well. I think he was going to go to Harvard or Stanford or one of those big elite schools. So definitely a smart kid, high IQ. So, Wendell Carter Jr. is going to really, I think, sort of achieve what, some people thought. And I think, especially in this system that the Bulls are going to run, I think Wendell Carter Jr. is going to see a decent amount of minutes, which is really important for someone his age if they're going to try and compete for the Rookie of the Year. And another draft pick they also picked up, it was one of those weird ones as well, where like, I don't know if they did this in previous drafts, but it's sort of guaranteeing picks. That are like, basically, I think it was a 22nd pick, they picked Chandler Hutchinson from Boise State. And before the draft even happened, I think even before, or maybe around the combine, they sort of said, we're going to guarantee Chandler Hutchinson that he's going to be picked at number 22. Which I don't know why that happened. I don't know, who would even do that, but it does happen, I guess. So he was picked, and some people sort of compare him to a Kyle Kuzma type, a sort of dual, hard-working player. I think it was a 4-year player at Boise State, averaged around 20 points per game. So definitely can score the ball, and I think again he provides that flexibility. Playing I think multiple positions, probably 3 and 4, and then you can probably guard from anywhere from 2 to 4 as well. So Chandler Hutchinson is going to bring something that, he's going to bring more depth to the team and definitely, add a bit of spark and add a bit of maturity on the team as well. Because even though he's sort of a rookie, he will be at one of the more sort of old, not older, but older the younger core, because they're going to be a lot of 18, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds. Then Jabari Parker's only like 22, 23, so he's probably the same age as Chandler Hutchinson. So definitely he's going to bring sort of a more ready game to the field. But I guess sort of just wrapping up the Bulls and sort of what we should expect for them, I feel like they are going to improve the team. I already mentioned the GM poll, and a lot of GMs loved what the Bulls are trying to create. Their young core, as I mentioned, Levine, Markkanen, Jabari Parker, Chris Dunn. Now they added Wendell Carter Jr., Chandler Hutchinson. They already had Denzel Valentine. So they have a lot of great multifaceted young players, which are definitely going to aid them in trying to develop. Like I said, they're probably going to improve the team. Maybe not drastically, but you're going to see some great potential. I think similar to, teams that we've seen before, like the Nuggets. I think they really can have similar trajectory to the Nuggets, which is definitely positive. But like I said, they're going to develop, they're going to improve, but, they're still not going to be a contender for the playoffs. But, if you're a Bulls fan, you definitely will be happy with the progress and the sort of state of the team. Because there's a lot of teams, when I'm going to break them down, are definitely not the best position. So, yeah, so that's it for the Chicago Bulls. And I guess moving on to another team in the East, team, if you're a long time listener to the podcast, I sort of hated on. I think a lot of people hate on because they have no idea what they're doing, and that's the Orlando Magic. So, what can we say about the Orlando Magic? If you didn't watch the Orlando Magic last year, you really just didn't miss anything because the Orlando Magic didn't do anything. Nothing is exciting on their team. I think by Aaron Gordon, and his sort of dunks and athletic ability, you're not going to watch a game just because of Aaron Gordon. No offense to Aaron Gordon, but you're just not going to watch a game because of him. So, with Aaron Gordon, with the Orlando Magic, basically, if you didn't watch them, didn't matter because they didn't do anything. But I think the big thing that sort of they did last year, I guess, of any note, was picking Jonathan Isaac in the lottery. And Jonathan Isaac didn't really, get to play that much last year because I think he was injured, or I'm not entirely sure. I think they wanted to sort of redshirt him and get him developed because he was a wiry guy. I think 6'10", really long, super long wingspan from Florida State. So sort of a local boy as well. But Jonathan Isaac was one of those confusing picks because they had such a big front court jam. And even before the draft, some people said Jonathan Isaac could potentially become a center. So if you're going to play him at the center, then you just have such a front court jam on your team. You already have Aaron Gordon. You had Nikola Vucevic. They just had so many front court players, which was, it just didn't work out. So that could be the reason why Jonathan Isaac didn't play more minutes. I just probably think he wasn't ready to play any minutes. But a lot of people are big on him still, and I'm not gonna write anyone off yet, especially in their first year. So Jonathan Isaac is definitely gonna hopefully play a lot more minutes and definitely try and show out. But as sort of Frank Fraschilla says all the time with the European players, he's 2 years away from being 2 years away, and he's sort of getting that vibe with Jonathan Isaac at the moment. But who knows? I could be completely wrong, and but. Like I mentioned, the Orlando Magic didn't do anything last year, and they're sort of, again, you hear a common theme throughout the whole 10-day episode series that these no man's lands teams, these teams that just, they're not good, they're not super bad, but it's just like they're not doing anything. Like they're sort of in that between that 8 to 11 range, which is probably the worst range to be, because it's like you're sort of wasting your time. You either want to be competing for a championship, or you want to be rebuilding as quickly as you can. And it feels like the Orlando Magic have been rebuilding ever since Dwight Howard left. Like the amount of lottery picks they've had, irrespective if they've been number one or not, it's just ridiculous. So you hope that one of these lottery picks fire. Aaron Gordon's sort of proving out to be sort of one of the more sort of important players in the team. Is that because he sort of had a contract to try and try and re-sign? Like he was trying to showcase, give me this much money. Was it more of a selfish thing? Who knows? Hopefully Jonathan Isaac maybe improves, but they've had picks before, like Mario Hezonja, you just never really turned out, and it's pretty disappointing to see. But hopefully coming into this year, and especially what they've done in the summer, that they can improve and develop on that. And I think one more thing, the biggest thing about the Orlando Magic is just the lack of point guard depth or ability, at all. Like they did have Elfrid Payton, who's sort of an okay point guard, but we'll get to that when we talked about the Pelicans stuff. But they traded away Payton to the Suns and basically just relied on, I think it was DJ Augustin to play point guard. Who everyone knows DJ Augustin. He's sort of like rated 72 on 2K. That's like the only thing you know about DJ Augustin. He's just like always that solid point guard that you sign in free agency in NBA 2K, because he's not too good, but he's not bad, and he's always worth like the veterans minimum. So that's basically who was running the point for the Orlando Magic. And evidently they didn't make the playoffs. They weren't really competing, and again they had not even one eye. They basically have both eyes on the draft, which, as we progress, changing in the summer, the big pickup in the draft was Mo Bamba, and I think, if you're an Orlando Magic fan, you shouldn't be disappointed at Mo Bamba. I think you should just be disappointed with how you resulted in the lottery, coming 6. You would hope that you'd be in that sort of top 5, top 4 range, so you could be picking, someone like the Luka Doncic's or the Jaren Jacksons. You have a bit of a better shot at sort of these higher graded players. But Mo Bamba definitely, I think, is a player that's had a high ceiling. I think he had a lot of potential. But again, one of those picks that, clogs the front court again. There was discussion that Jonathan Isaac might play center, but then you actually get a bona fide center in Mo Bamba, who's I think 7'1" and has the longest wingspan in NBA combine history. So a lot of arms on that team, a lot of length, a lot of arms. Maybe the GMs are building one of these mega super teams, but they're just gonna have 6'10" players all over the court with freakishly long wingspans that could just oversize all these players. So maybe Orlando's gonna do something revolutionary that we've never seen. But Mo Bamba pick, a lot of people were divided on Mo Bamba. They didn't know if he should be rated so highly. Is he sort of more a light Rudy Gobert? I know some people even were comparing to like Joel Embiid, which is pretty audacious. I know he trained with Joel Embiid in the summertime, but he's no Joel Embiid. Let's just be honest, he's no Joel Embiid. But I think one of the more important changes in the summer as well is that they got a new head coach in Steve Clifford, who was sort of fired from the he was actually just fired from the Charlotte Hornets. So they picked him up, and I think even though Steve Clifford didn't have much, he had a decent amount of success, but obviously with the demise of his 17-18 campaign with the Hornets, it put sort of a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths, especially Hornets fans. But Steve Clifford is a really good coach, and he's sort of known for changing the culture and developing young players. So if he can definitely live up to what he's viewed at by other coaches and other GMs, just people within the NBA community, he's definitely going to be a positive impact for a lot of the young guys in Orlando. As I mentioned, Isaac, Gordon, Mo Bamba now, Mario Hezonja. So, a lot of young talent on the team that could really be assisted by Steve Clifford, which is great to hear. And obviously, I've mentioned sort of the contract showcased by Aaron Gordon, and he ended up re-signing with the Orlando Magic. I think, I should have probably done better research, but I'm pretty sure he just signed straight up. I don't think there was any really other offers for him. So, he goes back to Orlando. I don't know if he wanted to go back to Orlando, but he's back at Orlando, so you better love Orlando, So, wrapping up on the Magic, what should you expect this season? I think the most important thing, as I mentioned with Steve Clifford, is its culture change. So you definitely should see the young players have this type of attitude to play hard and work hard and just really develop their skills and abilities throughout the season. I think, if you're a Magic fan, the most important thing is not to worry about the wins and losses, but more importantly, just see the improvements with your players, not only statistically, but how to sort of, feel passionate about the franchise and how they want to approach the game of basketball. Because they do have a lot of young talent, they do have a lot of lottery picks, and I think it's just trying to hope that one of these lottery picks break out, or even multiple of these lottery picks break out. And I think Aaron Gordon's going to be poised for a big season again. He had a red hot start for the start of the season. Like the guy was just lights out from three, but obviously that petered off towards the end of the season. But definitely with the Orlando Magic, big culture change. They're going to play big, obviously with a lot of length, a lot of front court depth. They still have Evan Fournier, who I think is a decent shooting guard. Not the best, but he's definitely a worthy starting shooting guard within this league. And I think the most important thing is, I think that he's just got to find a point guard. I think just try and find a point guard. Find a point guard that can lead your franchise. I think that's one of the most important things, especially in a point guard driven league. You see every single team there. Really, every single team has a solid point guard except for the Orlando Magic. Like, I remember when, I was looking at like who needs, I think Damian Lillard was on the one. Like, so many, when you just like, there's just so many point guards that, sort of want to look for another team, yet no one's going to the Orlando Magic. They really got to fix that. But yeah, overall, you could just sum it up with the Orlando Magic that, they're going to be an improved team. They're going to have a bit of a culture change, but, nevertheless, they're not going to be a playoff team, and they're going to have one on the draft. So, yep, that's sort of, falling off the Orlando Magic. And going to another team that wears blue. What a segue. The Dallas Mavericks. And, the Dallas Mavericks is probably one of the more exciting teams I really wanted to talk about it. Even before I researched, any of the points in the breakdowns and stuff like that. The Dallas Mavericks is just one of those intriguing teams that, last year, was trying to rebuild yet still compete. And I think that sort of was a conflict between the front office and the coach. I think the front office understood, they had an aging roster. Dirk Nowitzki's not getting any younger, and I think maybe they wanted to look towards the future and try and build out a team that's going to have some type of relevancy within the Western Conference for the next years to come. Yet, everyone knows Rick Carlisle, infamous for not, playing a lot of rookies that many minutes. And I think he always wants to be competitive. This guy's a championship level coach. And he's just known for competing. So I think Rick Carlisle, definitely, didn't want to try and fully rebuild. I think he still wanted to stay relatively competitive, maybe in spite of, the front office. But, they drafted, I think, some would say, he could be the best point guard in the draft. There's a lot of point guards in the 2017 draft. Obviously Lonzo Ball, you had De'Aaron Fox, you had Frank Ntilikina. You had a lot of point guards picked, but I think a lot of people sort of had Dennis Smith Jr. pretty high up there. Even the Lakers was thinking of picking him at number 2. Super athletic. I think 6'1". And even though coming off an ACL injury in high school, he still has crazy hops as we saw in the dunk contest. And I think, he played really well. I think he averaged like 15 points, 5 assists or something like that. So he definitely is both a scorer and a decent distributor. And I think that's going to work better, especially with the new additions in the team, which we'll get into. But I think, if you're a Dallas Mavericks fan, I think you should be happy with the pick in Dennis Smith Jr. I think he's definitely worthy of being a future point guard, or he could even be a two-way guard. He's very flexible in that regard. And obviously, in the past, the term combo guard was always sort of revered, but now it's like sort of everyone wants a combo guard. Your Donovan Mitchells and stuff like that. So, Dennis Smith Jr. is definitely going to be, definitely I think he's a good pick, and he's going to be with the Dallas Mavericks for a long time if nothing extreme happens. So, I think he's a good pickup and definitely bouncy. Man's got hops. So, in addition, like I said, they still wanted to compete. So, regardless of them picking Dennis Smith Jr., they still wanted to retain the same course. You had your JJ Perez, as I mentioned, Dirk Nowitzki. So, they still try to run with the same core and then, run it back and try and make a, playoff run, which definitely didn't progress because they realized that wasn't going to happen at all. So, as you saw later throughout the season, they just sort of gave up. Not gave up, but, quote unquote, intentionally didn't play their best players or rested players and stuff like that so they could get a better position in the lottery. AKA a tanking. Because, if no one knows, if no one knows, it was the last year that the old lottery rules were going to be, and they were going to implement a new current lottery system where, if I'm not mistaken, the top 3 teams, the top 3 worst teams in regards to the draft, we're gonna all get the same chances. So, Dallas Mavericks definitely wanted to take advantage of that. And the one thing I did want to note with the Dallas Mavericks as well, all last year, was the lack of playing time for the man Nerlens Noel. And most people probably know Nerlens Noel for tearing his ACL on a chase down block for Kentucky. Some might know him from Philadelphia. Others might know him for stealing hot dogs in the media room. A lot of things people might know Nerlens Noel about, but you probably didn't realize Nerlens Noel was even on the Dallas Mavericks because he didn't play any minutes. He barely played any minutes. He was on the bench. This guy's a former number 3 pick, I think, number 4 pick, definitely a top 5 pick. So, this guy is a former lottery pick, and he's basically scrubbed out. And as we know now, basically, transitioning to the change in the summer, we don't see Nerlens Noel on the team, and that's That's unfortunate because I actually like Nerlens Noel. I thought he was a decent player, and I think he had a lot of potential to be basically the player that they just signed in DeAndre Jordan. And talking about DeAndre Jordan, they finally got him. Obviously, the whole saga between DeAndre Jordan, the Clippers, and the Mavericks, and that whole icky little period of the free agency that didn't work out, but definitely they finally got DeAndre Jordan on a great deal as well. Only a 1-year deal, and he actually signed less than the qualifying offer for the Clippers. So you could, maybe he hated the Clippers, maybe he loved the Mavericks. If you're a Mavericks fan, you might want to think that he loves the Mavericks because you want him to be playing at his hardest. And I think by him doing a 1-year deal, it still provides a lot of great flexibility, and that if they want to move on from maybe it's not what they want to do, he can move on. Or maybe if he's sort of the next Tyson Chandler per se, definitely same build, tall, athletic, long, defensive beast. So DeAndre Jordan could definitely play a great pick and roll game with DSJ, but DeAndre Jordan a great pickup, and if you're a Mavericks fan, I would definitely be happy that he's going to be a starting center on the deal that he is as well. But we're not going to beat around the bush. I think the most important thing that they were able to get in the summer was trading up for Luka Doncic. They traded with the Hawks, and maybe depending how it works out, you could say maybe they traded too high, 2 first-round picks for Luka Doncic. But in my opinion, Luka Doncic should have been number 1. I think obviously Ayton with his physical abilities and him playing in America sort of suited for people to know who he is, and sort of more comfortable to pick him. But I think Luka Doncic is a generational talent. I think at 6'8", if anyone sort of preseason game, even though it was against the Beijing Ducks, the guy can shoot the 3 really well. His form was immaculate, like one of the best forms. Maybe doesn't get enough lift on his shot when he jumps, but definitely the form and the stroke is just magnificent. But I don't know why I even did that. But I think he's really the best player in the draft, and he can rebound. He's big. He's decently athletic. I think one of the knocks on him, at Real Madrid was that they didn't think he was athletic enough. I think they thought his first step was a bit too slow, and that he's going to be exploited by the more athletic NBA players. But I think Luka Doncic's been playing against men his whole life, and obviously a lot of Americans don't understand sort of the how would you put this, sort of the great, not greatness, but sort of the level of play within Europe. They might think it's sort of low because a lot of just people that don't make the NBA go there. But a lot of great talent is there. And Luka Doncic being 18, 19 years old was the best player. A 19-year-old kid was the best player in the second best league in the world, which is just incredible. That's honestly incredible. The most accomplished international draft pick there has ever been. And obviously, I'm hyping up him a lot, and a lot of people are as well. So he better deliver. But I think, depending where they play him, there's some, he could even play, a sort of point forward role, sort of LeBron, and then you can run DSJ off the ball. There's so many options that you could do with Doncic. You can have him be a stretch 4. Again, definitely a perfect pick for the Dallas Mavericks. And I think with, one European Hall of Famer, going out into the twilight of his career, you come enter the new age European player. So definitely sort of that synergy between the two sort of works out quite harmoniously in the Dallas Mavericks franchise. But maybe that was planned or not, who knows. But definitely look out for Luka Doncic. He, we'll probably get to it towards the end of this 30 and 10 miniseries, but you'll see that I have Luka Doncic as sort of my number 1 candidate for Rookie of the Year. But in addition to that as well, in the draft, they were able to pick up Jalen Brunson, a solid backup. Naismith's Player of the Year with Villanova. Definitely someone that you shouldn't, just brush off. He's definitely going to get some minutes, and I think, again, even though Barrett's good, JJ Barrett's good, I think you want to give a bit more shine to the younger players. I think Jalen Brunson, really, really solid play. He was, one of the, I think ESPN top 100 recruit, Villanova multi-national champion. So definitely this guy that played, this guy that's straight baller. So Jalen Brunson's going to do well. And another thing they did was re-sign Dirk. I think, that was a given. You got to re-sign Dirk. I don't know how many more years Dirk's going to do, but I think it's sort of known now that Dirk's probably going to start off the bench. I think he's just a bit too slow, and I think with the second unit, he's definitely going to excel. So Dirk Nowitzki getting re-signed, obviously a given. And I just want to give a great shout out to another Aussie in the NBA. Shout out to the Aussies. Ryan Broekhoff, man. This guy sort of had a long journey to the NBA. He played Div 1 boy Valparaiso. So if I'm not pronouncing it right, I got that Aussie twang, but Valparaiso. And he did it the hard way, and again he went through the European route, and he showed it through within the European scene that he's definitely someone to look to. He showed out, in a lot of Australian national games. This guy's good. This guy is going to be good, and I think he's got a great 3-point shot on him, and he's going to be getting minutes. Even though a lot of people don't know his name now, definitely know that Ryan Broekhoff's going to come into the league, and he's definitely going to be frying. I think even though a lot of Aussies will agree that he's probably not the same type of player as Joe Ingles, I think what Joe Ingles provides from the 3-point line is something that Ryan Broekhoff can do. And I think, especially in the Dallas Mavericks lineup, where they probably don't have the best 3-point shooting. Harrison Barnes is probably not the best 3-point shooter. I think at the 4 they don't have a lot of 3-point shooters either. So I think with Ryan Broekhoff, 3-point shooter, tall person that can play shooting guard, small forward, maybe a bit too wiry to play power forward, but who knows. But definitely want to give a shout out to Ryan Broekhoff and the Aussie, because he definitely made the hard route, and so it shows that you always got to be fighting for your dreams. So shout out to him. But sort of ending on the Dallas Mavericks, like again, I think out of sort of all the 30 teams, I would definitely give Dallas Mavericks one of the sort of top 5 teams to really watch. One of those league pass teams, good. Not only with the intrigue with Luka Doncic, but I think just with the intrigue with the team itself. I think it's just a really solid team to compete. And with it, that coupled with the coaching of Rick Carlisle, you're really going to see, in my opinion, a deadly combination of both young talent and old veteran savviness, and that's going to combine to really compete with a lot of the Western Conference juggernauts. They definitely tend to watch, and everyone's going to be watching, as I said, to see if Luka Doncic is legit. Because even though he was a number 3 pick, number 3 pick or number 5, I don't remember the draft anymore. But number 3 pick or number 5 pick, whatever sort of happened there, he's a lot of teams, people are going to look at him because he's been hyped up so much. He's been disgustingly hyped up, and I definitely have aided in that just now, but he's been super hyped up. So there's gonna be a lot of pressure on him, and the GMs agree. I think it's 44% have him as rookie of the year. So he's definitely gonna look to show and prove everyone that sort of doubt him that he is really gonna wipe off that European notoriety. Because I think with players like Bargnani, I guess Hazonia, Jargon Bender, a lot of these European players, GM sort of have distaste for, because they haven't really shown off. Obviously Dirk Nowitzki is one of the anomalies. Ricky Rubio's done pretty well. I think a lot of people have him as like sort of the next point guard sensation, which didn't work out. But if you look at his stats, he's one of the rare people that average 8 assists and 2 steals, pretty consistently throughout his career. So I think Doncic's definitely a big storyline. And as I mentioned, DSJ, future point guard of the franchise, but Wolves shouldn't have a breakout season. I think a lot of the attention, like I said, is going to be on Doncic, and just watch DSJ quietly improve and sort of have a great show out season. I think averaging 15 points, 5 assists, around about approximately. You can see that maybe jump to 18, 19 points, depending on how Rick Carlisle's going to structure his offense, and then maybe a bit more assists as well. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe you're going to have Doncic handle the ball more, and, maybe DSJ is going to be more of a, so it's just straight out scorer. So, but, just overall, Dennis Smith Jr. is going to definitely, I think, going to have a breakout season. You want to look for that as well. But as I mentioned, they're going to compete. They're going to definitely team to watch. And I think a lot of Western Conference teams are going to be sort of wary of them, because they're not a team that sucks. They're not a team that sucks, and you want to, show out and make sure that you beat them, because they're not going to be an easy beat. As I mentioned, Carlisle and the young core and the veteran Savinists, they're definitely, maybe not be a contender in the West for the playoffs per se. I don't think they're going to be fighting for a playoff position, but a lot of teams in the Western Conference, when they see the Dallas Mavericks on their calendar, they're definitely not going to take them lightly. They're going to take them, as straight as possible. Because again, one of these teams that are going to, I think, progress with this young core in the future. I think we'll discuss the Nuggets obviously another time, but I think the Nuggets have created this mold where, a young core built through the draft is definitely the way to go, because they always play with each other. They're built with each other. I think what the success of the Denver Nuggets has shown is with teams like the Dallas Mavericks, as I mentioned, the Chicago Bulls, these teams with really strong young cores that have a lot of potential, that maybe these teams are going to hold on to them instead of, looking into free agency and stuff like that. They're going to really just build internally and create that team camaraderie and stuff like that. But, overall, Dallas Mavericks team to look at, not a playoff contender, but a team that's going to be super competitive against these big, mega teams, super teams, stuff like that. But, I'll wrap it up there. That's the first episode of 30 and 10. Thanks for tuning in. It seemed it was a bit, more rugged than I wanted to, but obviously that's what's going to happen, trying to work out the kinks and stuff and how the episodes are going to go. But generally, these episodes are going to, follow that type of pattern, review of last year, changes into some and expectations coming up this season. But, as you'll see when the guests come on, stuff like that, it'll be a bit more free flowing, a bit more casual. But hope you enjoyed the podcast, and obviously tune in tomorrow for the next episode, because it'll be pretty cracking. It'll be breaking down another 3 teams. But if you're the Bulls, Magical Mavericks, don't expect any playoffs. Bye.